session 4 of Countdown to Christmas, and this time I'm going to read from the prophet Isaiah again, but chapter 61. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They'll be called mighty oaks, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendour. This is a passage that the Jewish people believed was referring to the Messiah that they were expecting. He would be empowered by the Spirit of God to do God's work, and his mission would be to bring healing and comfort and release to people, release from things that bound them. We read in Luke 4 that Jesus went to his hometown of Nazareth, and he was invited into the synagogue he went to the synagogue, but he was invited to be the one that day who would read the passage and then to give his explanation of that particular passage. Now, we don't know whether he chose this particular passage or whether that was God just organised it, that was the passage for the day. Doesn't matter. He read that passage. And after reading it, what the person would do, they'd sit down in Moses' seat, because they're said to be interpreting from Moses' wisdom and Moses' word. So he sat down in the seat and began to talk to them. And his very first words were, "Today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." So this was Jesus' claim to be the Messiah, the one sent from God. And indeed, Jesus did come to set people free from fears, from hurts, enable people to see the world as God saw it, to open the eyes of the blind. This is God's final part of his plan in restoring humanity to himself. The problem that his listeners had was that they were amazed at his teaching. It says so. But then they couldn't accept that someone who'd grown up amongst them could possibly be the Messiah. So they rejected him. And this, of course, raises a question for us. What expectations do we put on passages of Scripture? And are we able to see God at work powerfully in someone we know very well, even in our own family member? It's possible to see Scripture as something that sort of works above the level of human existence, but God in Jesus came right into the middle of our world, a world with all its mess, with all its troubles. He comes into every part of our lives, even the most mundane. But he comes to transform that messy, mundane life and change it into something beautiful. To bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. This is the ministry that Jesus came to establish, and it's the ministry that he's calling us to continue.
Oh God, must